Jeremy Birmingham from LettermanRow.com joins us now. And Berm, we heard from Ryan Day continually on Tuesday. This is the best team they faced by far this season, the biggest challenge they've had by far this season. So after winning a bunch of games by far, is this going to be a better test for the Buckeyes?
I think it will be. I think what Nebraska has is a few playmakers that are actually pretty scary if you're a defense, and that starts with Adrian Martinez, the quarterback, a true sophomore from California who Ohio State was very close to having play here, and Adrian Martinez wanted to receive an offer from Ohio State in the fall of 2017. The Buckeyes went in a different direction because he didn't play his high school senior season because of an injury, so they backed off. But he's a really good player. And then behind him, you have a dynamic freshman in Wan'Dale Robinson, who is a player that Ohio State wanted very badly in their class of 2019. So I think what you see is some players that give you pause. And as we've talked about before, when we talked about, I didn't think Indiana was a trap game or one of those, upset potential because they didn't have one of those special type of players, and Nebraska has a few. So I think it is a much bigger challenge for Ohio State.
Because of Iowa in 2017, because of Purdue last season, every time Ohio State goes on the road in the Big Ten, there will be pause for concern about it happening again. But because of what you just touched on, the talent of Nebraska, the fact that they have a Wan'Dale Robinson who is very reminiscent of a Rondell Moore from Purdue last year, I think that's why there is a bigger concern because of the talent of this Nebraska team.
Well, it's not just the talent, it's the atmosphere. It's a much better environment than Indiana, for example. Indiana crowd is sort of lackluster. Nebraska will be packed. It is a night game. It is going to have a different energy. It's sort of their Super Bowl. I mean, every team Ohio State plays, it is their Super Bowl, but they're setting it up that way. It's going to be a huge recruiting weekend there. They're going to pull out all the stops, all the fireworks, and all that kind of crap, and special uniforms and whatever.
Bulk supply of balloons to be released.
A ton of red balloons, and I think ultimately what it comes down to is how Ohio State prepares for the game. The Buckeyes roster 1 to 85 is still significantly more talented than Nebraska. Now the difference is with Nebraska, if you go 1 to 10. There may be some comparable talent. 1 to 85, there is not. So for the Buckeyes, it's about making sure that those 10 or so for Nebraska don't end up being difference makers. And that's the challenge, because as we saw with Rondale Moore a year ago at Purdue, it's hard to stop someone who's really good at football from getting the football in their hands. And Nebraska got him the ball over 20 times this past weekend against Illinois. So they're starting to figure out how to use him. And he's, unlike Rondale Moore, who was only lining up in the slot or at wide receiver, Wan'Dale Robinson is lining up in the backfield as a traditional running back. He's lining up in the slot. He's out wide. So they're trying to find ways to get creative and get him the football.
Let's talk about that Illinois game. Nebraska had to come from behind to beat the Fighting Illini on the road. Turned the ball over 4 times, which maybe kept that game a little bit closer, but Nebraska was able to put up some major yardage against the Fighting Illini. Now, granted, Ohio State defense is much better than the Illini's defense, and I think the way Nebraska turned the ball over, if they can't correct that against Ohio State, I think the Buckeyes are going to really be licking their chops, considering how much we heard today from Jashawn Cornell about how Ohio State doesn't want sacks. They want sack fumbles. Anybody can get sacks. Ohio State's defense very much keyed on getting turnovers.
Adrian Martinez has fumbled 4 times already this season. So, he's turned the ball over 7 times in their first 3 games. And that's obviously a concern if you're a Cornhuskers fan, if there are any in Toledo. I don't know. But for the Buckeyes, Adrian Martinez is the key. If he's able to get around and move around in the pocket and throw on the run and get outside of the pocket, the game takes on a whole different life. And I think for the Buckeyes, the key is to just stay fundamentally sound and go after the football as they've been doing. They have made forcing turnovers a priority for this season, and the new coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball has emphasized that from the minute they walked in the door here in Columbus. So I think that is the key. Can you get the ball back? Can you end possessions faster? I don't think Ohio State fans are going to want to see a Maryland-style shootout from a year ago, because Nebraska's players, the talent that they have, once they start getting that momentum, and Scott Frost is one of the best play callers in the country, you really want to try to avoid giving them any sort of momentum in that game.
Scott Frost, Ryan Day, both Chip Kelly disciples. Offensively, are these almost mirror images of each other?
They're pretty close. There's a lot of similarities, and again, most of it starts with the quarterback and having a guy that can move in and out of the pocket, who can throw on the run, who can throw from the pocket, who's an accurate passer down the field. And that's really where it all starts. Again, there's a reason Adrian Martinez was recruited by Ohio State and why they all went look for him. So I think that that's really something to pay close attention to. You will see it's sort of a mirror image of each other.
Nebraska defense, it's going to be the best defense Ohio State has faced. Is that a fair assessment, or Cincinnati's defense maybe a little bit better?
I think talent-wise, athletically, Nebraska's ahead of Cincinnati. Now, whether or not schematically, they're there, or if they're as fundamental as the Bearcats were, I don't know. Luke Fickell's pretty good at that. But, when you talk talent, when you talk about athletes and guys who can make plays, Nebraska is certainly the best that the Ohio State will see in this early part of the season. And probably, with Michigan State coming up, it's probably a good idea for Ohio State to start playing somebody like that. I think that, Justin Fields and Ryan Day and everyone talked about it today inside of the Woody Hayes, is that they haven't played a full game yet. They don't know exactly how they're going to fare when they have to play a full game, and this sort of the preseason feel is over. So it starts, in earnest on Saturday in Lincoln.
Justin Fields revealed today he's mostly taking online classes. He doesn't have a whole lot of interaction with the general student population in Columbus at Ohio State. And because it is Ohio State, everything's going to get blown up and magnified. It's going to be interesting to see what the blowback is on Justin Fields basically not being a traditional student athlete.
Yeah, I think that's probably more common than people think anymore. I mean, and again, for some reason, a lot of questions were asked of Justin Fields today about his life in Columbus. And I think that most of these high-profile athletes around the country anymore, and he said, he does it so he has more time to focus on football. And that's, make no mistake, that's why they're here.
Mm-hmm.
So, people may end up blowing up about that because that's what people do. But, it's not any different here than it is in Tuscaloosa or Clemson or anywhere else.
I think one thing that we're starting to see emerge from this Ohio State team, there's a different personality for each team, and it seems like this team's personality, with a couple of exceptions, is very businesslike, very serious. We don't see a whole lot of joking around. There certainly is going to be some of that, but it's a very businesslike atmosphere around this Buckeye program right now.
See, I think what's actually kind of unique is that Ryan Day's attitude in the environment that he's fostered here is entirely different than Urban Meyer's. And if you walk through the hallways of the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, like we were able to do on every Tuesday, the vibe here is way more relaxed than it was a year ago, right? But the players themselves, when you talk to them, they don't seem to turn on that switch and flip up the personality to 10, other than like Robert Landers or someone like that. So I think it is interesting to see it, because I think maybe the opportunity to be more relaxed throughout the day means they don't need to have that release when they got a chance to talk to the media on their own. So I think it's a really good thing for this Buckeye team to be taking on Ryan Day's personality, which is relaxed and calm and sort of easygoing until it's time to hit that switch. And I think that all great coaches have the ability to be sort of bipolar. And I don't think that Ryan Day has shown anything that he would indicate that he doesn't have that level, that intensity level that you need to be a big-time coach.
Yeah, I mean this with all due respect. I kind of see Ryan Day as being a kid in a candy store right now. He seems to be very genuinely excited about the opportunity he has in Columbus and the opportunity this program has.
Yeah, when you are getting your first head coaching job and it is at Ohio State, it's hard to think that there was any reason to complain or to be upset about it. So I think he understands the magnitude of what is in front of him here in Columbus, and I think that he understands the responsibility that is on his plate to be a proper steward of the Ohio State football program, and so far so good.
All right, thank you very much, Jeremy Birmingham from LettermanRow.com. What do you got coming up this week on the website?
All week we're talking Buckeye football recruiting, Buckeye football breakdowns of film to Buckeye Qs and that sort of stuff, and really focusing on the transition to playing what is finally, I guess, the first real game of 2019.
There you have it.